When Reverend Matt got home from his first accident, the bike accident, he could not walk, and he was on the couch whelping in pain, and I applied Advil, heat, ice, and pain patches. He let me know he would not seek medical care, and I trusted that he would tell me what he needed honestly, and yet I knew that he, like me, greatly underreports pain, and I was comforted that he had been wearing a helmet, and that good Samaritans had helped him get up from his fall, and we all need those community do-gooders. Now, Friday, when he fell backwards, hitting his head on the concrete while cleaning the garage out, and he did not want to go get his head examined, I remembered how ministers are supposed to be calm and non-anxious, and I did not feel non-anxious. I wanted to scream at him, but I resisted that, and my son tried very calmly explaining that he needed to go to the hospital. And my son called my ex-wife, who's an occupational therapist, and we were all explaining calmly how this was not an option, and he eventually agreed to go to the hospital. He could not stop talking about wanting to go to an ordination and wanting to come here and preach for you and work all weekend. The doctor told him no screens, and I explained how many screens it takes to write a sermon and how many hours and hours you work all weekend, usually before that. And the doctor ordered rest and asked if anyone else could preach for him. And Reverend Matt continued to insist that he is very good and that he can do it alone. Okay, Reverend Matt, what was it that you wanted to preach about? Well, first they need to know that we are here for one another through it all. Okay, got it. I said, so you want me to tell them that you and you alone can deliver a sermon on how they should be there for one another and lean on one another, but only you can deliver this sermon? Got it. Has anyone else ever done this? Well, it's really important that you remind them, I need to tell them, that no matter what happens on Tuesday and in the months to come, we have each other. Got it? Tell him you got it. Reverend Matt also wanted me to wisely remind you that the UUA has been making all different scenario plans for however voting and the election and lawsuits and things like that come out. They've been doing all kinds of strategy plannings. And they've been making a lot of plans for the most marginalized among us, and that has actually been going on for a couple of years. I know when I was interim in Chicago, we were helping with some of the pickups and rides from airports because we were already helping people move out of states that were extremely toxic for our transgender siblings. There's been a lot of that going on, and that is ramped up, and there's all kinds of contingency plans. So your faith body has been working on that, and that will be shared as appropriate. There's also some tips that I'm sure could be shared on your social media and your new newsletter that from the UUA, different social media sites and stuff have been put out about right now. They were put out, I think, on Thursday or Friday, that we can be using right now about holding each other in these times. And as part of counting on one another, we have to trust one another. And this is hard, especially because in all of these times of pandemic and closures and things like that, we have lost a lot of social skills. We have lost so many skills around things that used to be really normal, like calling in and checking in on people and stopping by and just those little touch points. People have made our world smaller and smaller. I was in a circle recently where someone said, I think that people just get sick of me. And then like 3 other people said, oh, I think that's me too. And I said, I wonder if it has nothing to do with you and people just forget how to keep checking on one another. I see a bunch of heads nodding, right? We're all forgetting how to keep our social circles and our neighborly circles big enough. We kind of go, they're all right, I'm fine. I'm just going to deal with the 2 or 3 people in my life that I regularly text and call. I'm going to deal with my spouse and my kid or something like that, right? So as part of counting on each other, we have to trust one another. And this is hard because it means we have to step back and ask those of us who hold similar values to us to show up. So one of the things about today's sermon is asking one another to show up. And if we want to do it all, there's a word for that. That means we're over-functioning. Over-functioning. If we over-function, there is no room for healing.
Preach.
But we all have healing to do. We all have healing to do. Whether it's because we had 2 concussions this week, or if we're holding old traumas, or if we haven't even admitted that things that happened to us that were traumatic, or if we're trying to prove to our parents or a sibling or a boss that we are worthy. We are trying to imagine the next stage of our lives, and will that be worthy enough? How will I leave my mark on this world? Or if we're afraid of what will come from this election or this next week or months, all of this needs ongoing healing. And regardless of what part of life is bringing you anxiety or fear, trying to do this alone is not sustainable. It's not sustainable. This idea that we should do everything alone and solo and individual is a bunch of malarkey. It is malarkey. A few weeks ago, I was here and I told you in my sermon that we will need spiritual practices. And I wish everyone had the kind of life and discipline where you did an hour of yoga in the morning and then you went swimming and you had a walking group and then, you meditated at night. And for most of us, that just is not possible. It's not realistic. It's not possible. So instead, I asked you to approach having a spiritual practice, and I told you to approach it how, for those of you who are here? Pathetically. Pathetic spiritual practice is called on. It wasn't just a sermon title last couple weeks, okay? This is our life. We need to do pathetic spiritual practice. Do what you can. Try to even do it for less time, more often, 2 minutes at a time. Repeat it often. 5 minutes. Do what you can more often, pathetically. We must do pathetic spiritual practice, folks. All right? That has to be a part of what's going on. Now, our new UU values bring up love at the center, and we have that great new poster in the center of the narthex part of the church, right? It shows us and it reminds us what we need to center. You'll sometimes see me doing this with a heart. I'm always making the heart, love at the center. So when you are asking yourself, what do I do next? What would love do next? A colleague of mine, Reverend Alex Hadler-Winnett, put it this way: we need to keep working on building relationships with local organizations, nearby religious communities, that individual next door that has the sign that may not agree with ours, right? All those things. But there is only one reason why we must do this. Love. If we do not do it out of a deep and abiding love for our neighbors and our city and our county and our larger metropolitan area, for the love of humanity and creation, we must not do it at all. Lovingly caring for each other humbly and tending to that inner dependent web of creation is the only thing that's going to work. Now, Reverend Matt has been asking you to attend these sessions in second hour about braver angels. Awesome, there's great language in those. I'm sure he'll do more after his head heals. Right? Learning more ways to love. That's a great thing to do. And the social justice group, I happen to be at their meeting this week, and they're working on action projects with Reverend Marilyn Miller, and they're looking at more ways to do reach outs and ways to know that love and humanity and creation are all here, and we can get to know people in different ways. And the exercises that you're going to do around mission and vision will all be engaging you, and they're designed to help you build trust with one another so that greater vulnerability within the community can become more comfortable and bring things across to one another. And all that is great and wise and necessary, and it's going to help you build community. Okay? But what I hope for you is that you do all those things, yes. Show up. But whether it is on Wednesday or next weekend, I hope you will bring some food and just sit with one another. I hope you will go around a circle together or get on Zoom if you need to and just hear one another in your hearts. It doesn't need to be a program. You don't need to comment on anything one another says. It doesn't need to be a conversation, but an opportunity to listen to people. Say, okay, we have an hour. There's 6 of us here. We each get 10 minutes to talk. I promise you it will be healing. I have started and restarted many a healing pastoral team in many congregations. And every single one I have worked with always asks, isn't there something more I'm supposed to do besides listen? Every single time. I really think they would like to rearrange one another's brains, put an addition on someone's home, like remortgage things for that. I mean, like they really would like to do some big things, right? And I get it. It just seems like listening is passive and sleepy and vapid affair, right? It doesn't even seem like an activity. And yet, if you're actually good at listening, you have no time to do anything else. You're not even really thinking while you're doing it. You're certainly not thinking of what you think. You're not thinking of what you will do or say. You will only be taking in what you hear. To truly listen, you are accompanying one another, walking alongside one another, while not bringing your own views to that activity. You are taking it in deeply, and you are trying to hold what the person is saying from their perspective. This summer, I had to write an extensive reflective paper. And I had written 8 pages, and I felt done. And the reviewers came back to me and said it needed to be longer and more detailed. And I was like, I had a panic attack every time I thought about it. And hearing this news, I was just so pained. And a dear friend reached out to me, a minister, and offered to read the paper to me in sections. So she would read my paper, paragraph by paragraph, out loud to me. I heard my voice. And then I was able to articulate changes. No, that's not what I meant. What I meant was this. Did you mean this or this? Okay. And she would help me write down what I was saying I really meant and clarify things, right? She did not tell me, are you sure you didn't mean to say this, this, and this? She didn't tell me what she thought I should have said. No, she just repeated back to me what I said. So it was a deep listening activity, right? I really felt heard. I kept telling the stories, right? It was powerful. I was able to make the changes needed to the paper. I could do the needed reflection and analysis. I had healing being heard. Just hearing my own words back to me. Wow. Listening is so powerful. My dream for you is that with all the election tensions, and to be really compassionate to my beloved fidanzato, Reverend Matt, you know, he said, hey, the world is really loud right now, and that's why I think I got in these accidents, right? And I'm holding a lot of people, right? And a lot of stuff. The world is loud right now. So wherever you're at with it, whatever your hopes are, and all the myriads of ways it's going to play out in the next several months, my hope is that you will find ways to listen to one another's anxieties and experiences and fears and joys. It's not about bringing your own views to the listening, except when it's your turn to be heard. It does mean reaching out. It will build community, and I want you to know, and Reverend Matt wants you to know, that we are here to listen to the circle of all of you. Now, it might mean for Reverend Matt that he has to let someone else preach sometimes when he needs help. He's also having hand surgery in a couple weeks. I'm sure he's told you all about it. And how he's supposed to take time off because he's not supposed to use his hand to type. You might want to encourage him to take that time off, right? We all do this, right? I am a total workaholic. I'm not making fun of him like I haven't mastered. I am so bad at this, right? I'm terrible at it. I want you to listen to one another because it builds up goodwill. Do nice things for one another. Show up for those work days, even if you don't think you're very useful, right? There was this one woman in my home church, and on all those work days, do you know what she did? She gave out tips about all the protests she had been to decades before. I learned great protest tips. She always had a Tupperware of food, I knew, in the car ride there and one for the way back. I wouldn't have learned this without this elder who couldn't walk, right? But you know what else? She also brought a handicap parking pass, and we got rock star parking to those. You know what I mean? Like show up anyway. Just be present. We need that warm fuzzy with us. That heart share is where we build love. Build love. You might say, Reverend Denise, I've got it all together. That's really nice and good. I don't need help. I'm like Reverend Matt. I don't need anyone else, and I'm doing just fine, and that's great. We don't know what's coming. We don't know what's coming. Life changes in an instant. I literally went in the bathroom to brush my teeth, and my son knocked on the door and said, Matt has a concussion. I'm brushing my teeth, right? How could this have happened? We don't know what's coming next week, next month, and perhaps you have more capacity. Maybe you do have a lot handled. That is so awesome. Maybe you have greater capacity. Maybe you have greater opportunities or privileges or whatever. That's so great. We need you. Don't be ashamed of that. That's fantastic. I happen to believe that just about everybody has pain and hurt and success and joy and achievement. It was Whitman who said, "I contain multitudes." We all do. We all contain multitudes. We all feel pain. We all want joy and love. We all want to be held. We are all called to create cultures of love. Naomi Shihab-Nye, in her 1952 poem Shoulders, writes, "A man crosses the street in the rain, stepping gently. 2 times north and south he looks, because his son is asleep on his shoulder. No car must splash him. No car drive too near his shadow. This man carries the world's most sensitive cargo, but he is not marked. Nowhere does his jacket say fragile, handle with care. His ear fills up with breathing. He hears the hum of a boy's dream deep inside him. We're not going to be able to live in this world if we're not willing to do what he's doing with one another. The road will only be wide, and the rain will never stop falling. In the months to come, you are called to hold the boy like in the poem. And I'm calling you to hold one another and to be here for one another. And I'm calling you to do the very hard work to listen, to actively listen to one another. Look for opportunities, offer it. Now, Reverend Matt was trying to reject all help and go it alone because our society teaches that we should do that, and especially teaches men that look like him that they should have this bravado. So I said to him, if I had even one concussion, or if I was having surgery, would you want me to go to work? Or would you want me to take time off? In fact, he admitted he would have lost his mind if I even considered coming to church to tell the children's story. So each time I ask Reverend Matt if he's told his church about having hand surgery in a couple weeks and how he won't be able to type, he has shared and asked if he shared with the leadership team and made plans for sick time. He gets ornery. And yet when I asked him this weekend what he would think if it was the exact same thing for me with a concussion or surgery coming up, he went, oh! He even banged. He was like, ooh. So ask yourself, what would I do for the person I loved the most? What would I want to see for them? Do that for you. When I had ankle surgery a couple of years ago, Reverend Matt loved it when congregants dropped off quiches and fried chicken, right? And he was so pleased to report when I was taking naps. In fact, even now, he loves hearing when I'm doing things to heal myself. Or he loved hearing that my dear friend was helping me through that painful paper I had to write. Because those are profound ways the community has cared for us. Be part of that loving community that encourages care. Do that for each of you. I've noticed something else about listening. It's a really funny thing. It can't be done alone. Building a caring community does not happen unaccompanied. We all want that care, even when we're not physically ill. Be like where he arrived and accept help. The next few months will be hard. And the myriad of things you brought up in joys and concerns and all those you didn't speak will make it harder. We all contain multitudes. Sometimes you will need to rest. Create a community of love. We are called to do this work of love, dear ones. Do the deep listening. Bake the cookies. Make a quiche. Leave cute notes. Send snail mail. Ask for help. These all create that web that holds us. And that's how we stay nimble. That's how we breathe and dance. Our democracy is depending on it. So breathe. Amen, amen, amen. The thing about the future is that it's happening right now, and now, and now, and who we are can give a glimpse of who we will become. And should you have concerns, or perhaps ways that you would rather be, the good news is this. In the glowing palm of the malleable present burns an invitation to your favorite self. Go in peace.